Hello and welcome to another episode of Best Damn Sports New York Power Hour. I am Peter and I'm joined with Ram. Ram, how you doing tonight?
I'm hoping we get the entire hour to complain about the Mets.
I mean, I feel like we have to at least talk a little bit about the Yankees. They are, actually in a playoff series. Must be nice. Um, but I mean, listen, it's they have a tough road ahead of them. They obviously won today, but um, only two other teams have come back from a wild card series after losing the first game. So it's not very common. Doesn't happen very often, but you know, this Red Sox team is a little bit up and down. So we'll see what version of them shows up for game three.
Yeah, I mean, so what I will say towards that is that the Red Sox ran out their version of David Peterson today in Bello. Bello's a guy that I really like. Also, a pitch to contact. Like sometimes he has some strikeouts, but he's not a high octane guy, but very well liked within the organization. So they have their own David Peterson over there, and he struggled because he has been a little bit on and off since he's been injured. The reason they won yesterday was that Garrett Crochet pitched an absolute ridiculous gem of a game, and he was allowed to pitch deeper into the game than Max Fried, which a lot of people were discussing today. When it comes down to it, I mean, the one thing I will say about it that I think is funny is that we talked about this earlier in the week, you and I privately, that the Yankees restricted selling the tickets
Mm-hmm.
to people that were not from the tri-state area to try to avoid Boston from showing up. Some Boston fans definitely still made it out there, which
Yeah.
respect to them. But they've got it all set up for what they need tomorrow. I mean, this is what they want: home field advantage against a division rival, and they're facing a rookie in Connolly Early, right? So they needed to win. Tonight was a must-win game for them because it was Bello. You rather face early than Bello. The only thing is that we'll see if they send out Jazz and Rice. Ben Rice, with a very impactful hit today, did not play in game one because it was a lefty starting, and we don't know if he'll get the start tomorrow against early. So that will be an interesting thing to see because that might be one of those straw that breaks the camel's back things in Yankee land. We know that the coals are hot in terms of thinking about whether they want to fire Boone over there or not. And good evening, Ed. If it turns out that he makes the wrong call tomorrow, he might lose his job. Turns out he makes the right call, he might continue to get another year there with the Yankees. So we'll see.
Honestly, I don't think Boone's job, as much as Yankee fans don't want to hear it, I don't think his job is on the hot seat. Uh, you know, he very much does what the Yankees front brass want him to do. So I don't think he's going anywhere, even if they do lose the series tomorrow.
I think if they do that, he is in some danger, but we'll talk about it in terms of how it goes down, right? Because if they lose because he manages well and we watch Aaron Judge make an error that costs them the game or something, it may not be a Boone thing, right? It all depends on the nature of the game tomorrow. But I do firmly believe that the sentiment of Aaron Boone is going to be determined by how that game goes tomorrow, both the lineup, how he manages the game bullpen wise, and all of that. And they're lucky to be having that conversation, right? I mean, because on our end here, we know for sure that the Mets are keeping Carlos Mendoza,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't make a lot of people happy, to my understanding, from like polling the Mets fandom and stuff like that. And I know the Giants and Jets played last week. The Giants had a great win. The Jets struggled. I I honestly do feel like we have a good hour to bitch about the Mets though, because we have, and I'm doing it playfully because we're both Mets fans, but it's also the idea of the fact that for me, both seasons for the Giants and Jets are kind of like taking a back burner. To the Mets were supposed to be the big story, and halfway through the season, this was arguably the best team in baseball. And the second half of the
It,
season,
it
they
was
were,
record wise.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and it's frustrating to think that, of course, we're one game off. Historically, we can't get past the Marlins in series that we need to win 2 out of 3 to get into the playoffs. Will those things always be a thorn in my side? Yes. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, it annoys the crap out of me. Like, I talk about this. I can't stand the Marlins, right? I have, and it's everything that they do in the sense that I've complained about the fact that I think it was '07. It was John Mayne's no hitter that they broke up because, Paul Hoover dribbles one down the line, and I love John Mayne for that. Like, I've got a John Mayne auto. It is like the inverse of last year. And to be fair, when we get into the grading, I am going to talk about that in regards to Mendoza as to why I actually am on board with them giving him one more year. But it sucks, right? I mean, let's get it out of the way. It sucks because of the fact that I don't know if the way the team was playing down the stretch that they were going to make an impact against the Dodgers anyway, right? I mean, you look, the Dodgers are facing the Reds, and the Dodgers were the demon that beat the Mets last year. And I honestly, looking at the way they're playing ball right now against the Reds, it might have almost felt worse, right? That's coping a little bit. I understand me saying that out loud, but it might have felt worse if we end up going to LA and then we lose 2-0 to the Dodgers. We might feel worse than we do right now because I can't stand to see them beat us again.
I mean, I think it depends how, honestly. Like, if we lose both games like 12-0, get absolutely kicked in the teeth, sure. But if they're close games, you feel a little bit better about it. But honestly, even though the Mets record-wise were the best team in baseball, it was a little bit fraudulent. I was listening to the Mets Sub podcast, which I listen to a lot, and they were talking about it today. One of their listeners brought up in a comment, and I was driving to my work today, and I thought about just driving into a tree. That's how upsetting this was. 38 games, the Mets scored all their runs in 1 inning. In 45 games, the Mets scored all their runs in 2 innings. So for 83 games, you scored all your runs in 1 or 2 innings. It was 51% of the season, and the record in those games was 21-62. So that's just a huge call. Like, the problem with the Mets, they were just inconsistent, even from a game-by-game basis. Times they were, obviously we know Lindor can be streaky. Soto got off to a slow start. I don't put that on Soto. I know everyone talks about the 50 million, but we saw what his numbers ended up being, and he moved to a new place. Like, he became the highest player in the sport. Like, these are all mental adjustments that take time. But like, how many times in the beginning of the season, and really honestly all season, did we think to ourselves or even say out loud, we just need to get back to the top of the order? It was a very top heavy lineup. Some people did step up at points. Beatty had, honestly, I think a really good second half. But it kind of just graded out overall on what you thought you'd get out of him. McNeil had some good moments, but overall, I think what obviously was not good enough. But honestly, I think one of the worst parts for the Mets this year was you kind of saw the deterioration of Brandon Nimmo, and I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's only going to get worse. I don't know if the Mets elect to move him to more of a DH type role and use him in the outfield less, but I'm just seeing a huge regression out of him defensively, and his arm was never good to begin with, and it's a huge concern. The Mets, well, obviously Steve Cohen has no problem spending money. Some of those middle tier contracts, like the Nimmos, the McNeils, like, they're not getting a lot. They didn't get enough out of those middle tier contracts. While you see other, like, obviously it makes sense to look at them because David Stearns came from there. Look at the Brewers; they're getting production from everybody. If you listen to David Stearns' postseason interview that he did, a press conference, he said it like 10 times: run prevention. That the Mets need to focus on run prevention. And to me, that tells me that there's going to be a big turnover in this team next year. To me, that spells the end of Mark Vientos, possibly Jeff McNeil. And like I said, maybe they move Nimmo to more of a DH type role, because it's just, I mean, if they turn into the Brewers but spend money, I'm cool with it. But something's got to happen. This year was unacceptable. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's worse than 2007, because that is a bold-faced lie. Anybody that does is an idiot, or they're a child. But it was bad, man. It was a slow death, and it was painful. And I think we all kind of saw it coming.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that Stearns talked about run prevention. And that's something that I want to talk about too, because the weird thing about some of the numbers, we're going to go into some grading here for anyone who's watching. We have some scorecards that we're going to discuss for ourselves between the two of us, right? That says I'm not a Mets fan, even I'm disappointed at them this year. I mean, disappointment is kind of the story of being a Mets fan. So you're actually a Mets fan now, Ed. Like I don't know if you get that's how it works, but if you're disappointed in baseball, you are by default a Mets fan. That's how these
Well,
things
I
work.
will say a little bit for people who don't know, Ed is my boss in real life, and so he lived the Met season with me. He saw all the ups and all the downs. I will say on Monday, my first day back at work after because I was off on Sunday, unfortunately. He's like, "Wow, you look really sad. Like you just look really sad." I'm like, "Yeah, sucks, man."
So here's some stuff that before we go into the scorecard that I thought was interesting, courtesy of StatMuse. So if you take a look here, from June 1st, so about 100 and so games there, right? The Mets were actually fourth in the majors with 511 runs. And so, and you think about, 162 games, 100 of those games, and I'm using June 1st because of the fact that the Mets were like ass with runners in scoring position for the beginning of the season. And so it does kind of skew the anomalies a little bit here. But putting it in perspective, if you look at the teams here, right? The Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Brewers, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Mariners, the Phillies, and the D-backs, putting the D-backs aside here, every one of these other 7 teams are playoff teams, right? And the D-backs were close enough to a playoff team as well. So you kind of sit there and you're like, all right, cool. The offense is clicking, right? Like, what's going on? Like, that doesn't make much sense. And I was looking into this because of the like Hefner versus Chavez stuff. Like, do we feel, and for what it's worth too, this is the same graphic, but organized by home run. The Yankees, they talk about their runs from home run balls. The Mets, of course, are kind of subject to the same thing. 160 home runs from that point on of the season was second most in the entire majors. So when you look at the numbers of guys like Lindor and Nimmo and Pete, of course, and Soto, the home runs were there, right? Another weird anomaly this year, which I won't bring up now, but Soto had a really weird amount of solo home runs instead of guys on base. But putting that aside, the home run ball was a big driver for the Mets. The thing about it with a team that hits home runs that often is that sometimes the run production can be limited to those big moments. Peter referenced the stat about the fact that in 1 or 2 innings they scored runs. This was not a like Guardians ball type team where they were hitting next man up, like promoting rallies. It was the big hit or none at all. Right, and these home runs are obviously not indicative of when they came in games. But again, by the way, I was surprised to see the Mariners on here. I don't know about you. I know Cal Raleigh is a big part of that,
Well, I
Peter,
feel
but
like that's very much
like
carried
it's pretty much it's a Cal Raleigh, and like it's kind of funny because like Cal Raleigh obviously judged for the Yankees, and Otani for the Dodgers and Kyle Schwarber for the Phillies. So these numbers were kind of carried a little bit. Even the Athletics over there at 6 have Nick Kurtz, who's one of my favorite players in the league. But it's again, home run ball was working, right? And so the production was good. Now, logically, you're probably thinking, okay, what's the other side look like? And that's what tells the part of the story here. Because if I switch over to the other side of it, right here you go. This is what's going on the run. When we talk about run production, the Mets allowed the 5th most runs during that same span, 5th most, right? So the problem here, besides the fact that clearly, and I'll switch back for just the visual, right? They scored 511, they allowed 525, so they did allow more than they scored in that span anyway. Look at the teams that they're amongst here, right? Like when we're here in terms of scoring, playoff teams, all playoff teams outside the Diamondbacks, but we're looking pretty sharp there. On this side here, we're looking at the worst teams in the league: the Rockies, the Nationals, the Twins, the Angels. the Cards were close for a bit, but they had their issues. The Braves, the White Sox, and the Marlins. Right? I mean, run prevention is the name of the game, and the Mets did not prevent runs.
No.
They just
In
did
fact, what's very upsetting to even look about this is the Cardinals gave up less runs than we did. We traded for their fucking closer.
Right.
And they still gave up less runs than we did. Going back to the Soto thing.
Part of that is his fault.
Yes. 100%.
He gave up quite a few runs during his stint with the Mets.
I'll never forget when I was at the game with you. It was the first game, the only game that was worth going to the National Series. Ryan Helsley's Hell's Bells played, and a literal groan echoed through the stadium. And like people just like, I'm going to the bathroom. Like, I don't want to watch this. Like, that's what I did. It's like, I'm gonna go pee. Like, I'm good. I'm not watching.
Helsley just was not a pleasant experience, and I hated it because, and we'll talk about it too. It really frustrated me because Mullins was also not. That was also another part of it, that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough right now. But we did make reasonable moves in terms of the assets and what we targeted, in my opinion. But the return we got on those guys made it worse. I mean, you got Cedric Mullins, who was a net negative. And all we needed him to do was just be average, right? We didn't need him to save the world. We didn't even need Helsley to do anything outstanding, considering the other acquisitions and the fact that we had Diaz. It was a matter of just, can you be average, right? And these guys came in and were just horrible, absolutely horrible. Right. And it's frustrating. I mean, we went through this period of like, and any one of these games could have been the difference maker for the Mets making the playoffs, which is why it's frustrating. I mean, I would rather we be blown out of the water and we weren't even close than to miss the playoffs by technically 0 games.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's the worst part, Ram. It was just one more game. We're talking about a team that didn't win a single game, being down in the 8th or 9th inning, which just kind of compounds to the issue that I was talking about, where the Mets scored all of their runs in either 1 or 2 innings for 51% of the games. Another thing that, before we get too far ahead of that, with Soto, I mean, again, that's a problem with the lineup being top heavy. Soto was batting second, so if Lindor wasn't getting on, chances are he was hitting with 1 or 2 outs, and he was the only guy there. So, I think that has to do with the majority of the solo shots. But, I mean, do you want? I feel I guess we can do the scorecards now. I do want to put a caveat that I did these scorecards basically like immediately after, like I might have been the next day, and Ren did them today. So
right, yeah,
mine are a little bit more based, and I honestly didn't look at any stats. I just put out how I felt about them at the time. And that was my season grading. And Ram, he said he looked a little bit at season stats and stuff. I guess maybe. Yeah. So, yeah, his might be a little more educated.
Before we jump into it, by the way, I just want to throw out, because I have the inverse to this graphic, the runs thing. And I did want to throw it up because I know we won't get back into it, right? But when you look at the other side of it, right, and you see the teams that, by the way, the Pirates having Paul Skeens. Yeah, Paul Skeens is God, and the Rangers were a surprisingly good team. I think they were 10th on runs scored, and you see they were 6th in run prevented. So their bullpen just kind of screwed them. Like, they had some bad luck. But again, all playoff teams here, right? And so it is, I think, amusing to me, though, the concept of run prevention in the sense of just using this barometer here. The 2 best teams in the National League and in the league, the Brewers and the Phillies, unsurprisingly allowed the least runs. Right. I mean, for all the talk about the Phillies aging and the Brewers are necessarily a non-star situation where they're just next man up, they were able to make that happen. So I do think that's going to lead into a lot of how the Mets approach going forward. I mean, Stearns built the squad that the Brewers are going out there with right now. And regardless of the fact that he's been here for a little bit, it's still very much a remnant of what he put together over there. And I know that he's going to try to put together here. And It's going to be frustrating because we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about everybody in the next like 40 minutes or so. And Peter's right, by the way, as he goes into the grading, like he did them right after. Like he made the graphic, he went ahead and just said, I'm going to do these right now. So yours were like fully under the emotions of like, I hate this guy, I love this guy, and this is how I feel. I took some time today at the doctor and like kind of looked at some stats to kind of like I guess get a better view of things just because I have memory issues medically, but also it's a matter of the fact that I wanted to know where my mind was against what their actual contributions for the year were. And I looked at a few other things. Like a couple days ago, I was just mentioning to Peter that I think Griffin Canning threw the fourth most innings for the Mets this year. And that's a crazy thought to me. That because if you remember how early he went down, you know, but
What a
you
gut
got
punch that turned into be.
But how? I mean, and that was tough because at the time it was like, all right, cool, next man up for the Mets, right? But it turned out to be like that was actually really, really painful that he pitched the fourth most. And I mean, it's literally it was Peterson, Clay Holmes, Senga, Canning, and McGill, and then Diaz. Like if
Jesus
we,
Christ.
I wanted to bring the I'll bring that graphic up when it comes down to the pitching before we get into the pitching scorecard. But
Mhm.
like how crazy is that? Like if that's the way that it was supposed to be, that you signed Clay Holmes, who I didn't even think was going to be an effective pitcher, and he was one start away from being our innings leader this year. So I'll bring that graphic up when time comes. But where do you want to start with your four
Well,
cards?
I think we should start with um, the coaches and kind of like the behind the scenes guys. I'll add that to the stage now because
Let's
a
do it.
lot of that has to deal with kind of what we're talking about. So Carlos Mendoza. Actually, I'm going to skip it. I want to talk about Stearns first. We both gave David Stearns a C. Um, I think C is a fair grade to start. Um, we talk a lot about what David Stearns didn't do. I I do think some of that is unfair. He did mention it in his end of the year press conference. Like I think Mets fans would have been upset if I did trade for some of the starters, like of who we would have had to give it up. Unfortunately, and this isn't his fault. It's just the way it is. I think we're like Garrett Crochet's name gets thrown around a ton. I think if it was this off season, we could definitely get Garrett Crochet. I think a lot of the meat of our farm system was a year away.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sprout and I feel like Sprout and Jeff gets that done. Jet Williams gets that done now. Last year, it didn't obviously. So I mean, I have to take him at his word that he did try. And the fact that the only like Merrill Kelly, and Dustin May were like the only starters that moved, and they were both not good for the teams they moved to. So I have no choice but to take Stearns at his word. But like, man, it was like even in the beginning of the season, we talked about how the starting pitching was not good. Like it could be a huge problem, and it started great, and then it very quickly fell off. But I think C is a fair grade for him. What do you think, Ram?
Yeah, so I mean, if I'm working off the idea that C is passing, because that's the way that I look at it,
Yeah.
C is passing. I don't hate you. I don't want you fired. I do think that I have to be honest with about. All right, let's go to if we consider Soto more of a Steve Cohen thing because of the money involved in that, right? If we go back to the offseason to now,
I don't. I think that's unfair.
right?
I
But
think.
even so, I give him credit. Like I'm passing him on it, right? But
Mhm.
I do think that like that was a big Cohen thing. I'm not saying Stearns was against it, right? I
Yeah.
can't imagine
Listen.
him being against signing one of the best players in baseball.
This is all I'll say on it. I'll keep it quick. If you're giving that much money to a player, your owner needs to be involved in the decision. But
Right.
yeah,
No, that's what I mean. That's why I'm like, all right, maybe I don't, because I feel like that's also like, I mean, great job getting Soto. I do think that almost falls more on Steve, and that's part of the reason why my Steve grade is an A, right? Because, and I'll get into that, but I feel like let's go aside now from looking at the trades, right? We kept Tyrone Taylor, even though we thought we were going to kind of eventually move to a guy like Benj in the future. We still need a stopgap for center field. And we got Siri, which didn't work out. That was bad. We kept Taylor. It was bad. Harrison Bader, who was our other option, went ahead and kind of tore it up, not only against us, but overall was a really good hitter. Other trades, like trading for Helsley, good thought process, didn't work, right? Trading for Mullins, good thought process, didn't work. And so I will pass you in the sense that A, I liked your draft. B, I think that the layup stuff, like keeping Pete and trying to keep these guys in line, getting Soto, fine, it's good. It looks good on paper. Might have been a mistake not bringing back Jose Iglesias. I don't know how I feel about that yet, because when I look at the numbers for this team, something is missing. Is it a heart thing? Is it a spirit thing? You know, Luis Severino talked about this, and it was weird for me because a part of me just want to be like, yeah, you're just complaining because you're over there like getting pitching in shitty mounds in Sacramento. But there might be something to it. Iglesias mentioned it too. The team did feel like the vibes were off. Maybe we went too much analytical and not enough of the fact that these are a weird bunch of memeing folks. That's when the Mets were at their best last year, the Gay Grimace Mets. There was a lot less fun and whimsy this year. Maybe that's what it was, you know, because at the end of the day, this is a team that also needed the last game of the season last year to make the playoffs and could have made it again today. I'm sorry, like this year, but that may not necessarily be a point of achievement if it takes you till game 162 with the biggest payroll or one of the biggest payrolls in the entirety of the league to do so. So for me, I'm frustrated because I feel like if David Stearns could do more with less with the Brewers, I want to see more out of you here where you have a much bigger wallet. In my head, on paper, that should lead you to be able to make one of the best teams that's ever played baseball. And so we're just not there yet. That being said, I mean, I have to give him time. I know these things don't magically just happen, and I want to be reasonable about it. Again, his draft was good, and he kept prospects that I thought were valuable to the Mets in the short term and overall going to make an impact within the next year, probably. So, okay, you know, we'll give him the C there. I just, it's hard for me if the team misses the playoffs to not assign some of the blame to him, right? Because maybe even one of those personnel decisions in another direction changes his team, right? It might have been just Bader over, let's say, Tyrone Taylor and Siri and that situation. And I thought Siri was a good risk at the time. So, but at the end of the day, I kind of have to sit here and say, look, it didn't work out. And if you make a bunch of moves that make sense that don't work out, it's still a results oriented business.
Yeah.
And I have to say, all right, you're passing, but you're not passing with flying colors by any means.
And I will give Stearns a lot of credit. He did take all of the blame. He said, you know, it was his fault, and we'll transition into Mendoza. But you know, he was a lot of the things that were talked about with Mendoza's failures were talked about that he didn't do a good enough job getting him the players to put themselves in the position that, you know, Mendoza could make good moves. But with the negative of Mendoza, and this is kind of what I wanted to get at with him, isn't team morale and my brain stopped working.
No, and congruency, the responsibility
Yep.
of the coaches. If the vibes were off, the coaches have to do what they can to fix that. Yes.
Yes. And I think that, and that's why I hugely disagree that, like, should the Mets have brought back Jose Iglesias and like JD Martinez? But it's like Jose Iglesias didn't have a good year. Last year was a great year. He had a great year. Did way better than anyone thought that he did in years. But like, if you're going to bring him back for that regard, bring him back as a coach. Like, it's not up to, it shouldn't be up to players to, like, you know, fix the vibes. Like you're supposed to have a captain. You know, this team doesn't have one. I mean, it's Lindor, but Lindor is a very much you know, I'm the captain by action. You know, I do what my job every day and lead by example. Pete, I don't get much of a read on Pete as far as what kind of leader he is. Soto, I mean, again, this is his first year on the team. I don't expect much out of him as uh, a leadership perspective. But like, so that's why I feel like it falls a lot on Mendoza. Like, I understand why they didn't fire him. I want to say that it's a bad look if you want to hire down the road a seasoned vet head coach that if you fired 3 coaches in 5 years, uh, it's not a good look, and it's going to make it harder to sign somebody down the line if Mendoza doesn't work out. So, but like anybody else deserves to be fired for the year that they had this year. Like, I'm sorry, I feel like that's both things can be true.
Yeah, I am not so firm on either side of the argument here, and I kind of hate that because I'd love to, for the sake of content, like take you up the mantle or something, but I can't really look somebody in the eyes after the talent that was listed on this roster, and you tell me this team didn't make the playoffs, especially on the trajectory they were on halfway through the season, right? If you're telling me that you want to fire a guy for that, I actually can't get mad at you anymore. Because if you're the best record in baseball at one point during the season, halfway through the season, and you don't make the playoffs, somebody has to be held accountable. That being said, the Mendoza seems to be a calming presence over there. He seems to have a good hold on this team, and a relatively similar squad last year played with a lot of energy and a lot of spirit, and it made it seem like they were going to do something special. Arguably with less talent on paper last year did so, right? So Mendoza is capable at least of doing something with this team. That being said, this is going to be a really, really high pressure year going forward. And I don't really like the idea of firing a manager mid-season type of thing. So I think they'll give him close to the full year. But if the Mets start slow out of the gates next year, the day one, there's already going to be a target on his head and be like, you know what, Mendoza's not the guy to manage these personalities, this dugout, whatever it is. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that I really can't speak to. I mean, you're right about the Jose Iglesias thing. He obviously overperformed with us last year, and he went back to his career norms and being a solid defender this year. Pretty much what it was from Jose all the time. And so I can't really argue. I don't really know, I guess, is what I mean when I was talking about, like, I don't have the answers. I don't know if Mendoza's a bad manager or not. I don't know if it's a situation where he did try and the players just didn't perform, right? Because it's a matter, like in the beginning of the year, we were talking about it. Runners in scoring position. Like, is that really Mendoza's fault? No, maybe it's Chavez and Barnes' fault, right? But like, it's not necessarily a situation where I want to take Mendoza's head off because they didn't drive the runner with 2 outs and less than. So it's hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wrong for looking at it like a job, but like, if your job sets making the playoffs, is that like the Mets' minimum expectations this year? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you failed. You failed at your minimum expectations at your job.
Right, but see that last year the argument could be that he overachieved. So that's why my brain says
I don't listen. I don't know what the Mets. I know what the Mets publicly said. Some of that I think was to get Max to agree to for Max to get traded. But I don't know what they were saying behind the scenes. Publicly, yeah, they said it was a rebuilding year. Sure, but I don't know.
No, but you get what I mean. Like, there is an argument that he overachieved last year. And so the way I see it is that it's possible that they look at it where, like, all right, you underachieved and you failed this year. You did fine last year. We're going to give you one more year with more resources to figure out if you're the guy or not. Right. And I can roll with that. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm comfortable with it. What I will say is that I am very results oriented going forward with this Mets team because of the resources vested in it. And so I do have a shorter leash than I might have had years ago. And so I do not support Like, and if the Mets just make the playoffs next year, like if they're a wild card team next year and they're constructed better than they were this year, I would not be bothered if they fired him. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, you're just constantly underachieving now. We're going to give you another year. So we'll see. I'm just not sure because I don't have any strong feelings about Mendoza. What I will say is that it felt like last year he had a better pulse on his guys and he tried to go to them this year in similar ways like Ryan Stanek. And I can't. So this is the same kind of conversation I was having towards Stearns, right? Which is what it's hard or like hard to kind of grapple with. Logically, it made sense for you to go to Stanek and then Stanek sucked, right? Or logically, it made sense for you to go to like Ryan Helsley. We trade for a guy who was a dominant closer and then he's tipping his pitches. I don't know how much I blame you, right? And then the organization could be telling him you need to run Helsley out there like to try to get his feels back. That might not be a Mendoza decision, right? And he might have went out there and maybe his gut told him not to send Helsley out. But like the organization was like, hey, Helsley's tipping pitches. We got to send him out here. We got to see what it's like. And he says yes. And so in that way, if you look at it like a job, if he followed what management told him to do, he earned himself the other year. So like that's where I'm like, I don't know enough to say, all right, he definitely needs to go. But what I will say as we move off Mendoza, right, is that you are right. It is a job. And this year was a failure to do that job and an underperformance. So thin ice, very much abundant here, but I'm okay with it for the one more year.
I think, as Luke would say, why would you trust an Aaron Boone disciple? But moving on, because I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on the Mets coaches. I mean, Jeremy Barnes, Eric Chavez, I think we both agree they should be fired.
I'm okay with that. Why'd you give him an F minus though? I'm not even trying to like
several reasons. Several reasons. Honestly, but the performance on the field not being number one, you cannot have a hitting coach, a professional organization fight with fans on Instagram.
Okay, no, I'm fine. That's fine. Because I was going to ask you, I'm like, if the F minus is inclusive of the fact that we seem to have the understanding that Eric Chavez is a jackass, I don't blame you. Because like, see, the reason I gave the C is not because I'm looking to defend them, is because of the fact that, like, again, I pulled up that graphic, fifth most in the MLB from June on in runs scored. I mean, they were producing offensively, and some of these guys were pretty effective. Now, how much of it was going down to AAA and coming back up and hitting, I really won't be able to say. But
that was the one case. That was kind of, well, I guess maybe Beatty too. So
I was at Beatty and Alvarez, right? I mean, so it's and like the guys got back on track. Like Lindor got back on track. Even Soto got back on track. And I find it, as much as we like to debate, I can't imagine that they're all just showing up and ignoring Eric Chavez, right? There has to be some positive interaction. But
no, listen, like I said, a lot of it has to do with the off the field stuff.
Yeah.
Kicking back a little bit on what you said, like I mentioned, the Mets scored 51% of their runs in only 2 innings. So they would have a hot inning, and then the pitchers would adjust, and the Mets hitters were not able to adjust. And that,
yeah,
like, what is the hitting coach? What are the hit? We have 2, and not even mentioning the fact that these were not Stearns hires. They were kept here after we hired David Stearns.
Yeah, I will say, at least between the amount of complaints I've had with the talent that we have and the fact that we essentially have 2 hitting coaches, we need some new voices in the room. I just think we need new voices in the room, right? I'm not going to sit here and do I think that he was at least okay for the sense of the fact that like Soto and Pete had good years, fine. Lindor, overall, they had good years, good offensive years, fine. So that's why I gave him the C, right? If I were to factor in the off-field stuff, I would absolutely have given him worse than a C. I want to be clear that I agree with you on this one wholeheartedly, Peter, that if any of that had an inkling of truth, that this guy was sitting there on Twitter and Instagram, and I have no reason to believe that it's not true, that if this is what was going on, they need to go. And I'm okay with that.
Again, I don't want to spend a huge, but like Jeremy Hafner, again, was brought here before Stearns got here, but pretty much everybody in baseball seems to think that he's a great pitching coach. So, we'll see what happens with him. What I really want to know is what the hell does Antoine Richardson have to do to get an A plus? Like, come on, Ram. The Mets had the highest stolen base percentage by far in the MLB.
Well,
What
that's
the
why I
hell does
gave
this
him
man have to
A.
do?
That's why I
Get an A
gave him
plus.
A. I mean, it's not only the first base coach. There's a lot more that goes into it. But
No,
I gave him
listen.
the A because the Mets obviously figured something out in terms of jump or timing, and credit to him for that much.
Soto had a 40-40 season. Literally, Yankee fans that like were shitting on Soto all the beginning of the year. You heard these "We have Grisham" chants. Come September, they're like, Soto's gonna have 40 stolen. What the fuck?
What did he finish with, by the way? Like 38?
38.
Yeah, I can't believe he freaking did that. It's still hilarious to me. I'm not gonna, but no, if Antoine Richardson, if we're gonna credit him for the stolen bases alone, he's like the most effective member of this entire screen.
Yeah,
I have to be very fair. I don't have any strong opinions on Mike Sarbaugh. But
also, what does he do? So whatever.
Yeah, I don't have any strong opinions on Mike Sarbaugh. I'm sorry about that, folks. If you were here for my Mark Sarbaugh opinion, I hate to disappoint you. But I do like Antoine Richardson because of the fact the Mets found out some magic. That's also what pisses me off. We stole so effectively. We didn't get caught for months. And somehow we didn't make the... Anyway, Antoine's staying. I like him. Fine.
So here's our first major difference here. Well, major difference, I'd say.
Yes.
You gave Steve an A. I gave Steve a C. Why'd you give Steve an A?
As an owner, he was responsive. He provided the most money for the payroll that anybody could ask for as a single institution. And he and his wife care about the organization. They went out there, they met with fans, they sat with fans, they left from the box multiple times for family events. I do not have an issue. I mean, obviously, putting hedge fund management aside, I don't have an issue with the way Steve Cohen manages the Mets at all. I don't think that I have
crime. It's fine.
But I don't have a complaint for Steve Cohen because he didn't deny the moves payroll wise. He was accountable. He was open. He talked to fans. He interacts with fans. For me, I'm very happy with Steve Cohen. I have no complaints in that regard. I was kind of surprised to see the C on there.
So here's why. What I will say is I still love Steve Cohen. I still think that Steve Cohen is a good owner. But there are a couple of things, and like you mentioned, something that they do that I feel like not a lot of people know, but every Sunday Mets have like it's like their family day. You can get like 4 tickets. So what Alex Cohen does is she and I know this because my friend and his family was a beneficiary of this. She walks around the upper deck of Citi Field and finds families and chats and has conversations with them, and she will give them better tickets than what they have. My friend was in the 500 section. It was him, his mom, and his grandmother, and she gave them 3 tickets behind the home dugout. Literally, they were that row. Again, I don't hate Steve Cohen. I love Steve Cohen. I still think he's a good owner. But like I said, there were a couple things that pissed me off. The first thing, this was from the beginning of the season, he called out Mets fans that they didn't show up enough for his liking in the ballpark. Well, Steve, we did. This year we did. We broke it was the highest attended season in Citi Field history. But you didn't hold your end of the bargain. We held our end. You didn't hold your end. The last tweet, again, I made this grade before he tweeted out. Before this last tweet where he did apologize and he did say that we failed and we'll figure out what's going on. The last tweet he did was like, "Oh, I'm hearing a lot less complaints when we're hitting in the when we score like 7 runs in 2 innings." Which again, hey, 7 runs in 2 innings. Look at that. Like I talked about earlier. So like I've also heard people say, "Oh, like he said we're going to win the World Series in 5 years." All right, like let's calm down on that one. Like he even almost immediately walked that back and said it was probably a stupid thing to say. So like, it's just it's a C. Maybe it probably should be higher, but like
I think it should because
that whole attendance thing kind of pissed me off.
I loved it. Because he was right.
But he
was right.
But we held up our end of the deal.
Right. But who they? Steve or the players?
The
Because
team.
Steve offered a near $1 billion contract to one of the best players in baseball, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll fund that, fully guaranteed." Steve held up his end of the bargain. I'm not mad at Steve Cohen. You know what I mean? I meant now. One thing I will say to you that I think is fair. Part of that apology tweet, I think, was a part of it for me too, because I'm like, owners aren't even transparent these days, right? And our guys out here tweeting and talking to people. I respect that. So I'm for me, it's an easy A, because that level of accountability, the fact that he even interacts with people, right? He's shouted out people in the member of the Mets community, a guy that I used to work and write with in Ernest Duff. Right. So, like, he cares. And for me, and this is not even talk about the fact that I think Alex is lovely as an extension of the Coens, right?
Absolutely.
So for me, it's an easy A, and I don't disagree with your frustration, but like, he's far from the issue right now. Like, if he were to call out Mets fans now and be like, "Oh, they didn't show up," then I'd be like, "You're being a petty bitch," right? Like, that I would kind of be like, but they didn't before. And we responded. The Mets as a team didn't hold up their end of the bargain. I think Steve did. And the reason I say that is because going into this offseason, I have faith that the team will be addressed even further.
Right? I hope so, because after this year, they're going to do the salary cap.
Probably,
this is Steve's last year to spend stupid.
To actually spend, we'll see, yes.
So, all right. Which one did you want to do next? Because I want to do, like, the hurt middle guys in the middle in between. So you want to go to hitting or pitching?
Let's go hitting, because that's an easy one. I'm gonna pull up something for you here.
Right, you pull up your thing first, and then after I pull mine.
Yeah. So, nope, that's the pitching one. I knew it. That's okay.
You want to just do pitching then?
I'll just switch over because I have both. I just thought There we go. So we pretty much only had 20 guys take at bats for us this year. So this gives people a little statistical perspective of what was going on. Luis Torrens took far more at bats than we would have hoped that he would, but he did his best. And you can see the kind of mix of things towards there. But for the most part, nothing shocking in terms of the at-bats of, like, if you watch the season, right? You know Lindor was there the whole time. You know Alonso was there the whole time. Nimmo was there a lot of the time. Soto. Vientos, I feel like I did laugh when I looked at it, because I was like, 121 games, so you played most of the season. And I'm like, your presence was very much needed, my friend. And it wasn't there, so I might be harshest on him. But, I mean, this is just taking a quick look at the names here. This is about what you expected. We only had 20 deep on the hitting side that took a plate appearance for the Mets this year. So you saw the same guys the whole time, for the most part. The biggest young impact, I mean, is also a thing too. Mauricio was supposed to be a bit of a bigger impact than what he was. He took almost 200 plate appearances and not so much to produce from it. But outside of that, too, and Luis Angel Acuna, but I'll talk about that when I get into grading with him too. I thought he was a severe disappointment. But I mean, this is the Mets offensive season in 2025 in a nutshell, right?
Shout out to Jose Alzacar, Jared Young, Cedric Mullins, and Acuna for having a collective more WAR than Mark fucking Vientos.
This is B WAR, so like I think it gets a little bit skewed, but Mark Vientos.
That would help. I feel like that would help Vientos more, because
B WAR might actually be nicer to him than F WAR, right? I think you're right. God help me. But let's go into the scorecard then. Let's talk about hitting. Let's see if we have any kind of like major discrepancies here. I know that I love the F- here for Cedric Mullins. I love the F- for Luis Angel Acuna. I got to be honest with you. The only reason I didn't give the F- to Acuna was because I was factoring in the fact that he was a very elite defender.
But we already knew that.
Right, but see, that's the thing. I'm okay with that. If he's just, but the C- was on the fact that I expected something with the bat, right? And I got nothing.
That's where I'm upset. I expected the defense, and I like in those 2 weeks. I mean, he saved the season last year. I think we can all agree with when Lindor went down.
Right, but see, that's what I mean. Like, I know I wanted that too, but I'm not gonna give him an F because like he was like I gave Cedric Mullins the F because He screwed up defensively too. I don't. Oh, this isn't
Bro,
half Jose Siri. I
he
would have
was
given F
so
minus Jose
bad.
Siri.
He was so bad he was so bad overall this year that they moved Brett Beatty over to second base.
But I mean,
And he's stuck.
Brett Beatty actually is not a bad defensive second baseman.
Yes, but he was not a second baseman. He was a third baseman. This was an experiment.
Agreed.
So like that's how bad Luis. He played himself. He was given the starting job at second base, and he played himself out.
I can see here the differences, as you were saying, to like the fact that like I took a breath before grading and you didn't, but for the most part, we were relatively aligned. What I will ask you to speak on here is Brandon Nimmo, because I kind of get where you're going with your grade, so I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it.
So I will say with Nimmo, the number stats are there. He did a number wise about what you would think a typical Brandon Nimmo season was, but he fell victim to which a lot of the team did, to streaks. He was very streaky. I mean, look, yeah, he 2.9 is an okay brand. 25 home runs, like that's like numbers wise, that's pretty good. But like which honestly you can fault for a lot of this team. He was not clutch. There was no timely hits, and his defense is really eroding. Like I genuinely worry what we're going to get out of Nimmo next year in the field. I really think that we're going to have to majority play most of his games at DH, especially with, again, David Stern said it like 10 times, run prevention. If you are truly concerned about run prevention, Brandon Nimmo can't be your starting left fielder. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and on my side of the here, I'm putting aside Tyrone Taylor and Cedric Mullins because neither of them will be with the team next year, and that we're better for that, right?
I think Tyrone Taylor will. I think he's going to resign. I think Tyrone Taylor is unfairly targeted. Tyrone Taylor is supposed
I
to be
think he's fairly targeted.
He was brought in to be our fourth outfielder, and he basically became our starting center fielder.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he provided very little on. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really have much good to say about Tyrone Taylor. When he had to swing the bat, even as a fourth outfielder, he did very little, right? And if you're gonna defend, if we're gonna give him credit for defense, then we got to give Luis Angel Acuna the same type of love.
No, but again, at least for me, the expectations. Tyrone Taylor was.
But Luis Angel Acuna was not supposed to start this year, was he?
Yes, he was. He was the starting second baseman on day one.
Right, but did you really think long term that was the move? Because I never thought it was the move.
I thought it was.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's a perception thing. I don't know if you're necessarily wrong or I'm right. Right? Like I don't. But I was kind of just hoping to see what we would get from him. And what for the Luis Angel thing, the one thing that bothered me the most, I think, was the power. Where I believe he had no home runs this year, and his slug was. Let me see if I can pull that back up. Yeah, so he had no home runs and he had a slugging percentage of 274. And I know that he's not a power bat, but Jesus Christ, like there was nothing coming out of the bat. And I'm defensively, I know that there is some life in there. I mean, also you can see that he stole 16 bases in limited time. I mean, I do want to give him credit for that. Like I know that there are tools there, and I'm not giving up on him, but I do not expect him to start, nor do I want him to start, right? I will also take mention of the fact, because I playfully hate on the guy, but I want to give credit where it's due here, especially because I have the numbers on screen, to Brett Beatty, right? Because Brett Beatty was, in the second half of the year, a major league contributor. And you look at those numbers here, even over the course of the entire season, not even looking at how good his second half was, but in about 400 at-bats or so, 18 homers, 50 RBIs. I mean, that's starting quality. It's not going to be like fourth hitter, third hitter type thing. But if Brett Beatty is your like number 7 hitter or something, and he's playing third or he's playing second with an average glove, you can get by with that. So I'm comfortable, and I respect the fact that he put in the work and put together a pretty solid second half of the season. as much as I am then on the flip side frustrated with Mark Vientos, because oh my God. I mean, so if you go to the scorecards for me, and then again, this is me after taking a breath, right? If you move aside Mullins and Taylor, right, my worst grade was to Mark Vientos. And this one was because of the fact that I had expectations for you. You know, I not only like, oh, this is a guy that I traded for in fantasy leagues and things like that. Like, I legitimately thought Mark Vientos after the playoffs was going to step forward to be a real contributor. And I was willing to make that argument in the beginning of the year. Like, hey, Mark Vientos' glove may not be great, but he's going to hit home runs, like 30 home runs. He's going to hit the ball hard. Am I out on Mark Vientos? No, not at all. Will I kind of look at him the same way Mendoza and like the next year is going to be a really important type of thing? Yeah, because I anticipate they bring in a new voice to coach the hitters. And I anticipate that someone should understand that Mark Vientos has the physical tools to be a middle of the order bat in this league and has shown he can do that. Someone needs to be able to take advantage of that and work with that. But outside of that, yes, you hit some home runs. Yes, you were semi-useful at some points in the season. But in terms of failed expectations for me this season, the guy who failed me the most on the offensive side was Mark Vientos.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe he's played his last game for the New York Mets, unless they just decide to make him the full-time DH, or him and Nimmo split time, depending who's if there's a lefty or a righty on the mound. But just to give you an idea of how disappointing Mark Vientos was this year, and to bring a little bit of fantasy baseball, he had a higher average draft position than Junior Carbonero. So just to give you an idea that what people were expecting from him this year and what he delivered, like it, and honestly, the entire time his attitude seemed just really shitty. Like, he got thrown out of a game because he struck out. He swung he did it, and he got rung out because he was just being a bitch about it. And it's just, I don't know. And even like after the game, like the next day, he's posting pictures on Instagram, like, hey, I'm like, sure, like I'm not going to begrudge you because you're like hanging out with your friends. Like, it is a job, but like also maybe understand that like maybe it's just like wait a couple days to post. Like, you having fun hanging out with your friends after like the most disappointing season of your career so far. Granted, it's like the second year, but still.
Yeah, I
Just
do.
give it a week.
To your thoughts about like playing their last game for the Mets, I have talked about this and I'll reiterate it here. I do think that the Mets see the future of center field in Carson Bench. I do think that they also may play Jet Williams at second base. And if Jet Williams comes up and plays second base, if Pete Alonso resigns and Carson Bench is going to play center field, there is a lot of question marks for guys like Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna, Mark Vientos, and even Jeff McNeil. Right. And yes, or to a lesser extent, Brandon Nimmo. I say to a lesser extent, Brandon Nimmo, because of the fact that he does have the least movable contract of that. And although he had a down year, there is some kind of a weird emotional attachment going on there with Nimmo because he's like a career Met. It's the same thing with McNeil, but I feel like McNeil might be at less risk because he's a utility player and there's going to be room to use utility player Jeff McNeil if he can stay healthy. Nimmo has a very limited profile in certain ways and he's aging. I don't know, but I think if there's expectations for Jet Williams, we're going to see less Ronnie Mauricio, we're going to see less Luis Angel Acuna, and we might see less Mark Vientos. And a lot of that's going to have to do with whether the fact Pete Alonso signs or if they pick up anybody else overall. But there's going to have to be some wholesale changes on the side. And with the expectations that Lindor, Soto, Alonso hopefully stays, right? You know, Francisco Alvarez is going to stay, of course. There are still kind of like, I guess, holes, like a murky kind of situation where we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. It starts with Pete, and then I think it works down. And I think Pete's effective year and Vientos being ineffective may lead them to giving Pete a bigger contract than they wanted to before, and maybe that goes smoothly. I'm hopeful that they do that. We're not going to go too much into off-season moves right now because that'll be for the off-season, of course, and we still have some talking to do about pitching and hurt players, but I think that the Alonso maneuvering is going to determine a lot of whether Vientos specifically stays with the team going into next year.
I will say I don't know if Benj is going to be our starting center fielder next year, because I believe I have the correct player. I was reading Serrano. I believe the Mets sent him to Arizona Fall Ball League with they want him to play center. He's going to be a center fielder out there because I'm taking Stearns too much, his press conference too much at his word, but Benj, while is a very good player, is more known for his bat than his fielding. So I think that if this guy works out and can play in elite center field, you might see a situation where he's your center fielder and Benj plays left field. Because again, in my opinion,
you're talking about Eli Serrano?
Yeah,
I'd argue that you might see Jet Williams there before you see Serrano. This is my personal thought process, that Jet Williams is a very interesting player where I still think the Mets are also suspiciously quiet about Jet Williams, I have to say, which I think is interesting.
He struggled a little bit in AAA. But yeah,
they're just weirdly quiet about Jet Williams, and I don't know if that means they don't have as much faith in him as I might have faith in him. But it's interesting to me. I'll say that.
But all right, let's move over to hurt and guys that I couldn't fit in the other ones.
Yeah.
So are you shocked that I didn't do Brett Beatty A+?
No, because you're reasonable about it. I mean, as much as we like to talk here, and Brett Beatty deserves the B-, and I mean that in a good way. Like, he deserves a good grade for his second half of play, right? And I think I'm glad that we matched up on the grading, because I don't want people to think I'm being disingenuous when I talk about Brett Beatty, because it's not that. It's the fact that I didn't know what he was going to become.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, if you want to talk about Brett Beatty, he had his first half was atrocious. It was truly atrocious. But his second half, he played like, what did we talk about Brett Beatty in the offseason? Play a good defense and be league average at bat. And he played good defense in two positions. One was brand new to him. Like, great. You did what we wanted you to do. Good job.
I think this is the first time, by the way, I rated a player worse than you, and it was Senger and Asokar.
And Winker.
Oh yeah, I have no positive feelings about Winker this year, because I look at first. I mean, so I tried not to be too heavy in the fact that injuries affected some of these guys here, right? Like, because
always hurt.
Like, I gave AJ Minter an A. Yes, he was only around for like 5 minutes, but when he was there, I loved him.
5 minutes,
right? So that's what I mean. So I'm like, I gave him an A because I was like, AJ Minter was really good for the 5 minutes that we had him. So I gave.
That's why I gave him a B+ because he got hurt.
Right, and so like I went back and forth here between like where I felt like, okay, if I look at your stuff in a microcosm, like in a small moment, what did you provide here? I don't know. I don't hate Jesse Winker. I like that he was like the weird enforcer guy on our team. I like that he has attitude. I just think that the Mets have moved past whatever Jesse Winker provided for them, and I just don't have anything positive to say.
Agreed. He's not going to be in the team next year.
No, I'm surprised about the McGill thing here, because I don't like McGill either, but I thought it was funny that you gave him a D+ because he was effective for a bit.
No, even when he was here, like he did the McGill thing that McGill always does.
Yes.
April, it's like, wow, maybe he's like finally figured it out, and then June is like, oh no, he sucks, and then he got hurt. So
I get, because I feel like you factored in the injuries to, like, if I factored in the injury to some of this stuff, McGill would probably be closer to like a C+, maybe.
Hey,
like
D+ passes. Congratulations, you graduated high school.
He was okay. He just and part of that too, and I'll bring it up when I'll talk about it when I bring up the pitching stuff right after this into the pitching stuff. But he did pitch a lot of innings for us too. Surprisingly, I didn't realize how many innings he pitched. But I know we were about the same on Max Kranick. We both liked Max Kranick before he got hurt. Showed a lot of potential. So
I'm shocked. What the fuck does Frankie Montas have to do to get an F from you?
I mean, he didn't lose every game. He was actually effective for like 2 or 3 starts.
Listen, I think the most positive thing Frankie Montas got was any player out of you when I traded him to you during the season.
Yeah, I definitely considered like a solid F here, and I thought about it, and I'm like, all right, he threw like 1 or 2 starts, but like Asiri and Winker and one of the few Fs I gave out, I'm like, I can't really think of anything positive you contributed to the team, and this is not really a shot at Winker as it is more a shot at Jose Siri. Um, I just and Sanger just I felt for me this is a funny one because I graded him lesser than you. I feel like there were just stretches of the season where I was watching Sanger have to come up to hit with like runners in scoring position, and he was the most ineffective person in the world. So that was like my vibes grading of like,
Well,
I
that,
appreciate you, but oh my god.
but I mean, he was only there because of injury, and you knew what you were getting out of him. He was a defensive first catcher who couldn't hit. Defensively, he was fine, and he couldn't hit. So, like, okay, he did exactly what I thought you'd be.
That's fair. I mean, I could probably have been lighter on him. Frankie Montas probably deserved the F. I got to be honest.
And then
And
Alzakar, I'd give a C minus just because congratulations, you finished with the best batting average in 2025 bets.
yeah, it doesn't count. But
Oh,
that's like being like the governor of Alaska or something. It doesn't really count. But like
hey,
God, but
it gets you a vice president nomination.
yeah, well, if we're gonna see Vice President
Well,
Jose Azocar,
anyway, let's go, Matt.
God help me. Let's so let me transition over to pitching before we go into the pitching grades, right? And to this is I organized by innings because I thought it was interesting. I wanted to bring it up. I mean, so this is actually only half of the graphic. The Mets led the MLB historically in the amount of pitchers used in a single season, right? So they had 46 pitchers if you include Luis Torrens, which I have to because he did pitch, but including Luis Torrens, the Mets had 46 pitchers and Jared Young, 46 pitchers pitch for them this year. Now, I
No
don't
way.
know.
No.
I think Jankowski pitched an inning for them too, by the way. So I have some of the other stuff like under Tidwell, we have some other guys that like Rico Garcia threw a few innings, Kevin Herget, AJ Minter, of course, Richard Lovelady, Danny Young, Genesis Cabrera. I can't believe I thought Genesis Cabrera was going to be useful, but it's so I really did. I was like, oh, I love Genesis Cabrera. This is going to be great, Mets pitching lab. But okay, so 46 pitchers is an MLB record, which is part of the reason we sucked. And that's part of it. Another thing is, again, just looking at the innings that were thrown here, right? If you told me that this was the innings distribution that we were going to get from the pitchers, I probably could have told you that I would have said that we would be under 500. Because, again, Clay Holmes was 3 innings away, 3 1/3, from being our most used pitcher the entirety of the year. That's why I sit there and I'm like, you know what? This was kind of a snake bit year, right? Because our 4th and 5th, Griffin Canning and Tyler McGill, who are both hurt, but Griffin Canning threw 76 pretty strong innings for us. And as much as I want to hate on McGill, right? His ERA was just about Griffin Canning level, and he threw only a few innings less. So that's why I was like, I was a little lighter on McGill than I thought I would be because I'm not really impressed by McGill, but he did what he could and like did his best out there. In fact, like I think, look, you can see it right here. Griffin Canning in 76 innings, 70 strikeouts. McGill had 89 Ks in 68 innings. Like there was something working there. They were figuring something out, at least for 5 innings worth, right? So I can be a little nicer to McGill. That's part of why his grade was. But Edwin Diaz was 6th on the team, innings pitched with 66 innings. I mean, if you look at on paper here, the Mets 5 starters for the year were David Peterson, Clay Holmes, Kodai Senga, Griffin Canning, and Tyler McGill. You know, that's a recipe for suffering. And you can see here, Sean Manaea, only 60 innings, and his ERA 5.6 since he came back. Ryan Stanek, 5.3. I mean, a really, really bad year for Stanek. Even Reed Garrett was up in the fours for a while before he brought it back down, right? Jose Butto was effective, not as effective as the year before, but he was okay. Frankie Montas is Frankie Montas. But you see here, like the numbers here put together, I mean, this is a rough screen to look at.
Yeah. I'm depressed. Thanks.
Yeah, this made me sad. I looked at it and I'm like, wow, this, even Paul Blackburn, we had him at 6.85 ERA in the time that we had him. I
forgot about him. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, we had Justin Hageman. Remember that one really nice Justin Hageman appearance too?
Yeah.
But and you can see, by the way, on here, I don't know how many of y'all are B-War people, right? I understand there's not that much merits for B-War. But if you look closely here, Ryan Helsley had almost -1 WAR in 22 games for the Mets. I mean, that's the worst. Like, you can look up and down this WAR sheet here, and it's one of those things where, again, B-War, Ryan Stanek had -1 WAR, which again speaks to the fact that I'm like, I feel like they're just going to jettison these guys and say thank you for your contributions. And
what contributions?
Exactly. But that's kind of crazy, right? Like, there's so much here. I could stare at this image and analyze it for like half hour. I'm not going to, but
I don't want to. So I'm going to do everyone a favor and move over to the ratings because this is bad.
Who's Scar Brazelman? Number 7 on that list, by the way.
Stop it.
All right, so a lot of similarities here, but
did I forget to put Brazelman? Or did I put him on the
Brazelman is not on here, actually. So the Brazelman is not on here. I was looking at it and I was going to tell you, like, by the way, he's 7th most innings pitched for the Wild, and I like Brazelman. Our biggest situations here in terms of difference, I think, come to Greg Soto and Kodai Senga. And I'm not going to fight you on Gregory Soto because
I looked B-. That to me is shocking.
I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was anything special, but you know what it was? And this is to my fault. I looked at Ryan Helsley before I was looking at him, and I'm like, you know what? Anybody that wasn't Helsley is a guy that I really, really liked. But I want to ask you about Kodai Senga because the F+ I think is really, really harsh. I get what you're going for, but I think that that's unfair.
So I understand that Senga was our ace in the beginning half of the season. But once again, injuries derailed his year. He came back up, and apparently he's not hurt. His body just isn't working right. I'm sorry. Like, what the? I'm so done with the Kodai Senga experience. Like, it's like, if this is what it's going to be every year, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to change because he's been here a couple years. Besides the first year, it's been the same shit. This is just what happens, and you can't rely on a guy that his body's just going to break down, that he can't handle 162 games. So it's not even 162. But so I think it's time to cut our losses. I think you trade him, get what you can get, and Merry Christmas.
No, I disagree. I like Senga. I think the upside is very high. I think the Mets are in a position where uniquely they now, because of the fact they have the youth depth and we're going to have options going into next year, that you go into the season expecting Senga to be in the rotation, but expecting him to be hurt. But I'm okay with that because there is a lot of upside for Kodai Senga. I'm rolling the dice with a guy like that because it's not like a Montas situation where Montas was bad when he came back from being injured, right? Like, when Kodai Senga's on his game, as of recently of the beginning of this year, before he hurt himself and came back pitching hurt, right? And no matter what they say, him and Manaea were pitching hurt this year. I know it for sure.
But was he? Was he? And actually,
Yes.
I'm talking about Mania. And if there's any grade that I could change, it would be Mania, and I'd give him an F+2 because all year I heard about he has foreign elbows, foreign objects in his body like bone spurs. And I'm like, okay, pass, your pitching hurt. We get whatever we can get. And then like I don't know, an hour after the game ends, we hear that he's not going to need surgery now on his elbow. So then you weren't pitching. So then
No,
what
I
the fuck
mean
was that?
he probably will need the surgery. They're trying to avoid doing it.
Just
They're not.
just get it done.
I think
Why
they need to.
wait? The sooner you wait, the more games he's gonna miss. What are you do? What are we doing?
Because you want to avoid surgery if it's not necessary. Like it's a tough one. I get it.
If it's
But you
not
can't just
necessary,
like
then what the fuck is Sean and I did this year? It was terrible.
No, I think you're just overreacting on both ends, honestly. Like it's not something that he was pitching hurt and it sucked a lot of the time. And I think it was a matter of the fact that it speaks more to the fact that we didn't have a viable replacement ready, in the sense of the fact that he shouldn't have been pitching the way he did. And Senga was pitching great before he got, I don't know if it's like a memory thing, but remember, he was pitching at an elite level. He was in Cy Young conversation,
No, dude,
and the ERA leader. But how can he get an F+ if for like half of the year he was arguably the best pitcher in the league?
Dude, again, I didn't forget. I was right when we were all on the David Peterson train. I was reminding everybody that David Peterson isn't even the best pitcher on the Mets. But it's because, like I said, like let me remind you, I made this grading like right after the game ended, and I was just looking back on Kodai Senga's year, and this has been basically the same story every year except for his rookie year, where he starts off great, he gets hurt, and he can't figure it out. Like dude got sent to fucking Siberia up in Syracuse, New York, and I will say he didn't have to go. He could have rejected.
Right.
He didn't have an option. So good on you as like good like that. That was team first, but like he never made his way back up when the Mets desperately needed innings. They desperately needed pitching, and they couldn't even rely.
But that's not on him.
At some point, why not? Why can't it be anything?
If they called him up and pitched him, he would have pitched. They thought it wasn't the right move at the time.
But that's my point. You're supposed to be the ace, and your team desperately needs innings.
But he gave you the third most innings on the team this year still, even with all
not when you needed it most. Not when everything was falling apart, he fell apart too.
I think you're just being ridiculous. Like it's the idea of the fact that he got hurt and he pitched. He came back earlier than he needed to. Is he fragile? 100%. But like this is still a guy that a team would want, and a team with pitching depth and options next year, ideally if everyone's healthy, should keep. You don't just like discard him to the side because you're tired of it.
Why not? We have this beautiful young crop of pitchings that are blossoming, and here's an actual legitimate problem we have, like that I think might piss us off in the beginning part of the season. Like, yeah, we have a bunch of young guys. We talked about it jokingly. Next year rotation can be McLean, Sproat, Tong, Christian Scott, and like I don't know, fucking
David
Peterson. But Clay Holmes is under contract, and Clay Holmes had a good year. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Clay Holmes.
Right,
Sean Manaea is there. Kodai Senga's there. I think Griffin Canning has one more year, but he's probably not going to be ready to go.
I actually thought Griffin Canning was on a 1 year.
I thought it was a 2.
I actually don't. I'll look that up right now.
Actually, now that I'm thinking, I think Clay Holmes has a player option for the second year.
I think he's still. Griffin Canning signed a 1 year deal with us.
Okay. Well, so honestly, I can see them re-signing another 1 year deal and just kind of rehabbing here.
I would like something like that, like what the Brewers did with Woodruff, where they gave him like a 1-and-1. And go ahead. So, and I want to address, if this is the major league, you can't keep up, you probably shouldn't be here, right? Again, So, like, if every injury-prone player, are we just going to eject them from the team? He kept up fine. Like, this is one of those things where, look, if we look at the stats, right? Even considering his stats after injury, he pitched to a 3 ERA. I hate to break it to anybody who's listening, but that is an effective pitcher. I don't know what numbers you want to throw out there, but that is still an effective.
He was pitching to like a 2 ERA before he got hurt. That jumped up a whole run.
That's what I'm saying. Pitching hurt, even with his blow-ups. His end-of-year stats are a 3.02 ERA, and you just want to kick him to the curb? Like, do you not realize that pitchers with that talent don't grow on a tree? Even if the fact that the Mets are going to turn around and actually develop good pitching.
Yeah, are you sure about that? Because the Mets pitching lab, they might actually grow on trees.
But I do not believe that this is a guy that you just kick to the curb. Like, look, I'm not saying after his contract ends that you need to re-sign him and you need to keep him in the organization, right? But he's under contract next year, and you roll the dice with him because I think you
give him back that I think you give him back that year you got in his contract because he didn't.
No, I mean, even if he had it, obviously at this point he didn't get the opt out because he didn't pitch enough. But if he did, he'd probably want to stay for the money. But wasn't his contract just a couple of years anyway? Like,
I think it was 5 years.
Let me see when he signed. I'll pull that up real quick because it was a 5-year deal, 75. I think it was like 575.
Like that, yeah. Also, while you're doing that, sorry, Brosbon, I forgot about you. I'd probably give you a C-.
Yeah, I mean, Brosbon's like a good warrior. I got to respect the fact he had some really good points in the year. He had some struggles too, but he definitely did better than Stanek. And statistically, he did better than Reed Garrett. So I got to give him his credit for that one.
Oh, that's not bad.
Good stuff for Huskar Brosbon. I would much rather, if we're being honest, I don't want the dumpster diving for the bullpen anymore. I know that we're going to have options. I know the lab is working, but I want to go back to that one real quick, that graphic, right? Because although they were effective, right? I mean, outside of Diaz, the bullpen, Stanek and Garrett, I know we expected more from them, but they couldn't put it together as much as before. Kranick looked good, but even then, he was still a dumpster dive that turned out to be pretty good. Kudos to Brooks Raley. I do want to say 37-year-old coming off TJ and busted his ass. I always have good things to say about Tyler Rogers. I don't think we're re-signing him. I feel like he's always going to be like, I just don't know why, but I don't feel like he's going to want to sign it. It doesn't seem like a guy who loves the bright lights. And that's with respect to Tyler Rogers because I like him and I would love to re-sign him. Gregory Soto, right. I don't have anything strong to say there, but you look at these names and I would like a bit of a stronger bullpen pickup. I know we're not going to be giving out like contracts to a second Diaz or a major pickup, but it would be nice to have somebody else, like another reliable option in the back end of that pen that isn't, the Mets pitching lab made him good, like a more reliable, consistent option. And that'll come up when we talk about the offseason, right? But it's rough because for me, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot going into next season, but I love the idea of Senga staying in that rotation because I feel like there are going to be some growing pains and some injury pains with maybe Christian Scott. And as much as I love David Peterson and I attributed a lot of his struggles to arm fatigue towards the end of the year, I don't know how well his arm is going to respond next year. Like if he comes out in the start of the next year and it's gangbusters and he's great again, fine. I love it. You're at the top of my rotation, right? But I have to see a little bit more before I'm saying for sure, yeah, you're going to be there. And it's the same for all of those guys. Maybe sans for McLean because he did show really, really good stuff throughout the stretch, right? But Sproat has his ups and downs, and Tong had some ups and downs too. So
I think Tong just wasn't ready. I understand why he got called up, and we kind of had to, but it clearly wasn't ready yet. And that's not, I still think he's the most talented out of the three, even though I like McLean more. But that's just because I feel like I discovered him before most people were talking about him, so I feel like a personal attachment to him.
No, I think it'll work. And honestly, I feel like I have a bad feeling about Minaya going into next year. As much as I like him, I feel like we might see a lot of bullpen Minaya or like short stint, long relief Minaya type of thing. And Clay Holmes, the thing about it is that we don't know what his second year is going to look like. You've got some guys that, like Seth Lugo was the guy that started, relieved, became a starter, and got even better, right? But then you have other starter experiments that, like Jordan Hicks and stuff like that, that just turned out like bad after. Clay Holmes was really effective this year as a starter in terms of 5 innings of work. Are they going to do some kind of piggyback situation with Holmes and Manaea? We don't know. We really don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm keeping Senga on my roster for sure. I think without question, because the upside there is an ace level pitcher. 1,000%, he's made of glass, and it gives me like agita. But I want to keep him and work with the idea that, like, okay, Senga's hurt, fine, bring Scott up from AAA. He's fully adjusted back from injury. Let him pitch now, and we'll figure it out from there. That's kind of what I feel on it.
Yeah. I mean, also, David Stearns, if you don't re-sign Edwin Diaz, fuck you.
Yeah, that he needs to stay here. He absolutely needs to stay here. I don't think I see any other crazy disparities.
No, I do think it's funny that you graded every pitcher better than I did.
I think they were effective. I mean, yeah, I is that really funny? Every single pitcher?
Every single, yeah. Like, granted, some of them were like, I gave A, you gave A plus, or I gave B minus.
Why'd you give Tyler Rogers a C plus? See, there was nothing wrong with Tyler Rogers.
Because, I mean, it wasn't even terrible. And I gave Tyler Rogers a C plus because it's not even fully his fault. He's not a strikeout guy. He's a soft contact guy, but the Mets defense behind him was not good.
Yeah, that was a pain in the ass.
Which is also why I gave Lindor a B. I think it was B plus, not an A, because his defense is, I give him a B.
Yeah.
Because his defense was
definitely declining compared to Platinum Glove Lindor. Yes, yeah. I've had some people tell me that in a year or two they see Lindor moving off shortstop into like second base, which is, I'm not there yet, but I hear your concerns. I do hear your concerns, and
I'm not there yet either. But it was not a good, and maybe that's why they're pumping the brakes a little bit on center field Jet Williams, because he might be our shortstop.
I'm okay with that, like lower part of the order. We're gonna see what happens with this Jet Williams experiment, because he's played second, short, and center field. But we'll figure that one out. But I know it just sucks to not be in the playoffs. I'll say that much. I know that we very much agree on that. Like, it sucks to be here that other teams are playing. If your team needs consistency, a glass cannon doesn't sound effective. I disagree with this completely, because at the end of the day, that you need to play for these type of upside plays. Like, the upside of Kodai Senga is an ace level pitcher. And yes, he is injury prone and not a strong man, but there are tons of players in this league that are considered injury prone that still get, like, Yordan Alvarez is considered injury prone because he doesn't really play full seasons, but he's still considered a superstar. Right. And situations where I'm not saying that Kodai Senga is like a Paul Skeens level pitcher right now, but he could be the ace of a lot of staffs if he's healthy. And I just don't see that there's a reason to get rid of. You don't sell low on your pitchers, right? Going into this year, his value was still really high. Now we have an idea of the fact that, yeah, he's kind of hurting, but it wasn't his arm that blew out either. It was like his side or something that he hurt when he made that like play. Right, and like his hamstring and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I mean, in your world where we can make like every move possible, yeah, the Mets will trade for Aaron Judge next season as well, because hope is their strategy. Right, so like we'll trade for Aaron Judge, and then we'll also like purchase Paul Skeens from the Pirates, because hope isn't a strategy, and we'll just get rid of everything, right? Like it doesn't work that way. Like, respectfully, it just doesn't work. I would love that. Like, I want to play MLB The Show and get Paul Skeens like on the Mets and like Aaron Judge on the Mets, and that would be great, because hope isn't a strategy. So let's just close up all the holes ever, right? And like, it's just one of those things. I get it. You're not wrong. I just don't think that giving up, like selling low on Senga, makes much sense, because A, we're not going to get much back for him, and B, you might as well, you guys know him the best in terms of the organization, give him a shot to go out there. If you're going to get like 15 starts out of him, it might be 15 effective starts, and I'll take that, because you can never have enough pitching, considering the fact that we just threw 46 arms out there this year and it sucked ass, right? So we'll see. I'm not in the mood to give up pitching. Unless it's like something that we can't refuse, and I can't imagine the teams are knocking down the door for Kodai Senga, right? But it's going to be a long off season because I don't know exactly what the Mets want to do, and we're going to be talking about it week to week, right? Maybe less or so as football goes on because playoff baseball's on. As long as the Yankees on, we're going to have to legally talk about them, and they will be on at least one more game tomorrow night, but we'll know by next week's show what exactly is going to go on in Yankee world. But
hopefully we get sad Luke next week.
Luke's out there, I think, trying to use the Wi-Fi in a campsite to see us. So we do miss him though. It would have been nice to have him around. It actually might be good to get both Luke and Chris around next week so we can have the Yankees and the Red Sox fan on together and see if they fight each other virtually. But God, tomorrow's game is going to be a big one. What I will ask of you as we are kind of wrapping up here, right? Are you in a situation where you're rooting for any of the teams, or do you kind of shut off because the Mets are not there?
Oh, I'm rooting for the Asteroid, man. Let's go Asteroid. I haven't watched a single game. I don't care. Baseball doesn't exist anymore.
You and all of our female viewership, Ed. But everyone wants to see Luke. I'll tell you that much. But I'm not as interested just because I'm one of those diehard Mets people. If I had to pick a team, I have two teams on the AL side that I'm comfortable with them winning, and that would be the Blue Jays and the Mariners. Because the Mariners don't have a title, and I like Mariners fans, and I like the Mariners. And the Blue Jays, because, it would be really funny for Toronto to win a World Series, considering everything going on in the world right now. So
I guess that would be funny as far as, we didn't even talk about it. Honestly, I didn't even listen to it. I just heard about it through Twitter. Michael K, this smug fucking ass. It'd be really great if Toronto won the World Series, and he just looks even shittier with his stupid, dumb comments and his stupid, dumb face.
I'm not gonna. I know he said some dumb shit earlier in the week, but I don't even want to give it attention because it's not worth it. It's Michael K. So we've talked for about an hour and a half about the Mets. Is there anything that you think we missed before we wrap up for the night?
I hope not.
Besides Huskar Brazaban,
I verbally gave him a C.
Yeah, you hate Huskar Brazaban. I didn't realize that you hated Brazaban that much.
No, I don't. He's fine.
He is fine, but he should be like your sixth inning guy.
Yeah, exactly. I do find it hilarious that he has actually no, the Mets use an option, so he has two options left, and he's 33 years old. So basically his entire career, he's just gonna end his career with the Mets.
Huskar Brazaban is actually 35.
Oh, he's 35. He's even older. Jesus.
Huskar Brazaban is 35. He might be. I want to double check here because Huskar Brazaban is 35. He was born in 1989, so he'll actually be 36 in about 2 weeks. His birthday is October 15th. So he will be 36 in a few weeks, and the Mets still have an option for poor Huskar Brazaban.
Yes, poor bastard. Yeah. So, I don't think we missed anything on the Mets. I guess we can go to closing thoughts, unless you wanted to talk about the sad state of Jets football or the Giants.
No, Justin Fields is fun, but the Jets suck, and Jackson Dart is fun, and the Giants are suffering because Malik Neighbors is out for the year. Yeah. So nobody's really allowed to be happy.
Actually, you know what? I do want to talk NFL officiating. What the fuck, man? That was not pass interference. That was not pass interference at all.
I think, emotionally and morally, right? The Jets suck as much as they do. They should be allowed to get away with a penalty here or there.
But it wasn't even a penalty.
They really should be. And on top of that, you're 100% right. It was an offensive pass interference. So I kind of hate it because it's the Jets are already against the world in a position where like nothing goes right for them. It kind of sucks that the refs are piling in on that too.
Yeah,
Because
listen,
that was not offensive pass interference. Justin Fields actually played a really good game, and he tried his hardest again.
listen, man, it's just like the Jets get enough penalties on their own without your help. We don't need you to throw phantom flags. Again, he didn't throw the flag. If you look, the ref didn't throw the flag until Wilson caught the ball.
Yeah, he caught the touchdown.
So,
Right.
like,
then he was like, yeah, we'll throw the flag.
fuck you, man.
What I will say that I thought was funny, because I was really annoyed at how undisciplined the Jets were playing,
Again,
is that I don't know if you heard, but the concept was that Aaron Glenn was so mad that it was the room next to the media room, and that every reporter could hear him verbally undress and curse out the team. And it was so bad that nobody wanted to repeat exactly what he said, even though every single one of them heard it. And something about that made me erect. I don't know why. I'm just like, you know what? This is cool. I like this. Maybe if all I want really coming to this weekend's game against the Cowboys, I don't even expect them to win. I just don't want there to be 8 penalties for 80 yards of boneheaded shit. Like, if Aaron Glenn can get them to the point where they're not playing sloppy, I'm going to give him some credit. That's what I'm looking for right now. Because as much as I joke and we talk about it, I know what we have with Justin Fields, so do you. Justin Fields is not going to win you a Super Bowl. He can give me some entertaining football, but he's not going to give you a Super Bowl, right? So now, can we play disciplined football? Can we stop with the dumb ticky-tack penalties that are costing us? Realistically, and this is so weird for me to say because it's homerism, but it's kind of funny. The Jets could have won that game against the Steelers, and they could have won that game against the Dolphins. So this could be a team that actually would have won 2 of these games, right? I mean, out of who was the other team that they played?
the Bills.
Well, the Bills destroyed them, but it was the
Bucks.
The Buccaneers. And that game was kind of like tight too, right?
Yeah.
For a bit.
If anything, the Bills game was closer until the Jets' stupid penalties
Jets it up.
Drives.
But it's weird for me because there's a concept of I'm not saying a playoff team. I'm not saying anything crazy, but there's a concept of a team that like could win a few games here, and I can see it.
I think best case scenario is this is like a 500 football team, like a feisty 500 football team.
You might be even giving them more credit than me in that statement, because like, I mean, what is a 500 team? 8-8? I was 17, so like maybe like 9-8, 8-8. I do not think this is an 8-win Jets team. I got to be real clear, right? But I appreciate the effort and what they're doing. I know that there's skill play. Like Breece Hall is a guy that I think is part of the future. Garrett Wilson's a guy I think is part of the future. I think there are parts of the defense that can work, right? But I don't want to see the penalties, right? Because the Giants instilled Jackson Dart on the other end there, and they beat the Chargers. A very effective Chargers team got beaten by Jackson Dart. Was it a tight game? No, but things went their way towards the end. And the Giants were also plagued with some dumbass penalties. So they can do it, right? So the Jets got to be able to do something. I'm looking forward to this Cowboys game in the sense of like, it might just be fun because every Cowboys game this year has been entertaining, to say the least.
And the Jets have historically played the Cowboys well for some reason.
Right. So at least, Giants fans are on our side this weekend because nobody wants to see the Cowboys win except the Cowboys fans. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But I'm obviously frustrated when it comes down to the stupid moves like that, but even more frustrated with ghost penalties. I agree with you, Peter. I do think that that's annoying. I wish we could kind of turn around and be like, hey, that's bullshit. Call it back. Like, can we challenge your flag because it's useless? But then Luke would be here talking about how the Lions are like, lioning. So he's okay. It's kind of good that Luke's not here for this part.
Big fan of Jahmyr Gibbs. Big fan. I have one fantasy.
And the Knicks preseason ball gets underway tomorrow. They're going to be playing the 76ers. There's a lot of talk about Mike Brown and what that offense is going to look like. So when that comes down to moving and shaking, and I actually see what's going on with the Knicks, I will take some time to talk about the Knicks and their acquisitions in a year that they have to have championship aspirations. Whether or not they're going to get it or not, we probably know the answer, but we have to hope. So we'll see. I mean, we'll get to talking about the Knicks because at least about half hour every week is going to be empty because I don't get to bitch about the Mets. So here we are. But yeah, and hockey's picking up too, right?
How about that hockey? Yeah, preseason games are going on now, I believe.
Let's do that hockey, baby. I'll learn hockey. I'll pick a team, and maybe I'll like the Devils so that you guys can
Don't do that.
get mad at me. Yeah, I think that would be good.
You're a Leafs fan.
I am a Leafs fan, but like I have to take note of it. It's like I'm a Saints fan, but I have to take note of the Jets because like I'm not going to adopt the Giants as my team. That's not fair. Like they don't want me either, you know? So like I'll take the Jets. We're underdogs. It's fine. The Devils, I don't feel like they have anything going. I mean, they have some guy named Hughes, I think is good.
Yeah, they have like the Hughes brothers. They're both good.
Don't they still have Martin Brodeur? I love Martin Brodeur. He was on Rocket Power.
Martin Brodeur, I have a lot of bad to say about Martin Brodeur. He's not a good person. I'll just say that.
He was on Rocket Power. How dare he do that to me?
Listen, I'm just saying somebody that he divorced his wife and then married his wife's sister. That's all I'll say.
Damn, that's actually fucked up. How dare he do that to me?
I think they were twins too. I could be wrong on the twins part, but they definitely married he divorced his wife.
I'm gonna Google a whole bunch of Martin Brodeur stuff before next week's show, and there's gonna be like a 5-minute segment of like, what did Ram learn about Martin Brodeur in New York hockey? Just let me talk about Mitch Marner again. I love Mitch Marner. Okay, so moving off Mitch Marner and the fact that he's so unhappy over there in Las Vegas. We can wrap it up for the night because I know that you're tired, and I know that bringing up the graphic about the pitching like makes you like really depressed.
That was the other one. So let's just leave. Don't do that.
Yeah, there we go. It's just like
Did you forget I have power too?
I can just put it back up.
Don't do it. Stop it. What are you, Luke? Get the fuck out of here.
No, I'm not Luke. I just I'm a guy who's like putting up like images and stuff like that. That's all it is. All right, let's wrap up for the night. No, you made it smaller. There you go. You have any final takes for the evening?
My soccer team's doing pretty good, so we got that going for me. They won today in the Champions League. Napoli beat Sporting Lisbon 2-1. There's a really funny theme that's been going on in all of soccer. Ram, I know you're not a big soccer guy, but I'm assuming you've heard of Manchester United.
Yes, I've heard of Man U.
Okay, so they historically great team, but they have been really dog shit for the past couple years, and every time, and every time a player leaves there and goes to another team, they do well. It's happened 2 years in a row for Napoli. Scott McTominay left last year. He won Serie A MVP. They won the league. This year, they signed a guy, Højlund. He scored 2 goals in the Champions League. Like, Man United are they're a fucking meme team now. They have some guy, like one of their, who's a fan of them on social media, that started a challenge like last year that he wouldn't cut his hair until Man United won 5 games in a row. And if you just look up those pictures, he has a lot of hair. That poor man.
I have to now look this up. I gotta have imagery, and I was like looking it up as you said it because I'm like, this is interesting.
I'm sure if you Google Man U hair guy. Oh yeah. Oh boy. I'm seeing pictures for like 308. Yeah.
The first YouTube video that came up says Man United hair guy is doomed.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've won more than 3 games in a row since the start of the challenge.
And what does he need? 5 in a row? 5 in a row.
They need to win 5 games in a row.
Well, you know what? At least the hair looks good on him.
He's a very large fro, for those who don't know. I can't, we're just doing really good podcasting.
I respect that. I like that.
So, Ram, do you have, besides, I guess that's my closing thought. Man United suck, Forza Napoli, but what are your closing thoughts?
I want to give myself a pat on the back for something. I joined the Mario Super Sluggers League this year for Dynasty, and run by a friend named Ted. And he had us pick our characters, and like the Donkey Kong, Mario, stuff like that, and pick team names out of the group of names that they had. And I'm very proud of my team that made it to the championship game and won. They did a good
Oh,
job.
congratulations.
So I want to shout out the Diddy survivors.
Yes, I
The
knew
Diddy
you.
survivors, the survivors of Diddy, with no other connotation than relation to Diddy Kong, won their first title in the inaugural Mario Super Sluggers Dynasty League. So I just want to pat myself and on the back, and non-touching way, pat the Diddy survivors on the back, because they're a very tough franchise. They've had a lot of things they had to deal with throughout this year. So good for the Diddy survivors and them winning and finding some brightness in the world in these dark times. So I'm proud of them and them figuring that out, because
Who were some of your star players on that
some
team?
of the Diddy the Diddy survivors, some of their best players, they were led by Nick Kurtz, Byron Buxton, former Red Sox Rafael Devers, and believe it or not, Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham,
Trent Grisham.
Trent Grisham, fifth most scoring on the Diddy survivors. One of the reasons that they were able to not only take it to the rack, but to complete the job, because he was useful. But the Diddy survivors out there working hard. And Kyle Tucker, their leading scorer, by the way. But yeah, fifth most on the team, Trent Grisham. Fourth most was the not even on the starting roster, because he was in the minors, Nick Kurtz, right? So shout out to these guys and their win there, and I'm proud of them. I'm very happy about it, because I need reasons to be excited, and I'm sure the Diddy survivors do too. So I'm glad for them, and I thought it was important for them to have their moment, at least here between us.
God, I really wish I still had that clip from that show of Derek Jeter talking about this party with Diddy. Oh well.
I'm glad they survived partying with Derek Jeter, because as we all know, Derek Jeter, very selfish man, not a guy that embodies the things that I look to embody in myself or my children. And on that thought, because I can think of nothing more poignant to end the New York Power on, that Derek Jeter is a selfish man, we're going to sign off for the night. Speaking for just myself and Peter tonight, because Ash is naked in bed and Luke is naked in a campsite, we are going to sign off for the evening. Thank you all for joining us.
I'm sending it. I'm not even going to let you finish.